Welcome to Andy's Personal Development, the place for transactional conversations. During these conversations, we'll discover intentionality and clarity, and of course, purpose. Now, here is your host, Andy Anderson Charles. Hi, and welcome to this edition of Transactional Conversations. Our guest is in the house, and this episode is entitled What is Self Discovery and Why is It Necessary with Kurt Busch. So, he's going to be the guest of honor at the moment. And let me just tell you a bit about Mr. Busch. He is a certified internal family systems practitioner, trauma informed coach, and co founder of Brimstone Coaching Group. With a background spanning corporate leadership, pastoral ministry, oh, that's intriguing, and coaching, Kurt helps leaders break free from self doubt, embrace authenticity, and lead with confidence. Having overcome his own struggles with imposter syndrome, Kurt is passionate about guiding others through transformational growth and authentic leadership. Through Brimstone's unique E plus R equal T approach, encounter plus reflection equals transformation. Kurt equips individuals and teams to move from exhaustion and frustration to clarity and wholeness. Sounds very interesting and intriguing indeed. So I take great pleasure in presenting our guests on this episode of Transactional Conversations, Kurt Busch. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you and we appreciate the time that you're taking to be with us on this podcast. You have a very interesting information bio there, and I'm mostly intrigued about the pastoral stuff because I'm a lay minister myself, and I understand what it is like to have the challenge of dealing with people on a daily basis, especially on a Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's all good. So here's the thing. When you found your calling in life, Kurt, what was that moment like for you? And if you could describe it, could you tell us about the emotion, how fulfilling it was, and what action did you take when you realized, hey, this is what I'm meant to do, meant to be, meant to become?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I
Thank
would
you.
start by saying I think call and vocation change over time. I think God does a thing where this changes over time, where we learn and grow, and vocation might look different tomorrow than it does today. Um, my career, my early career, was spent in the manufacturing world. I led teams of manufacturing laborers for some number of years. I also worked in human resources, leading people that way. And then late in life, in my 30s, I did feel a call to go to seminary, to lean into some more vocational ministry. I had been doing some volunteer leadership with boards of leadership in my local church, and been mentoring with some pastoral leaders that helped me discern that call. I think most recently, I did serve a church. I served a couple different churches for nearly a decade,
Mm-hmm.
and then discerned this call to co-found Brimstone Coaching Group. And I think how I would define that is there came a time in all of these transitional periods where my passion, my heart, my desire met with the needs of the world in different
Mm-hmm.
ways.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna mess this quote up. I forget who said this. Maybe it's Walter Brueggemann. I'm gonna misquote, but there's a quote that says, "Vocation is where our deep passions meet the world's deep hunger."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so true. And I think that's how I've discerned and measured when those vocational and certainly call transformations happen in my life.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Kurt. We appreciate that and we appreciate you. So you spoke about well, as a matter of fact, I just read about your struggles with the imposter syndrome and all that stuff. There's so many different definitions of that word. People describe it in so many different ways
Yeah.
based on their level of understanding or their level of education or experience. But before we get to that, how would you describe actual self discovery?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I and my coaching partner hold really close to our heart is that we believe most people, most adults, go through life just hanging on, just trying to
Mm,
survive.
yeah, yeah.
And most, I think most believe that there's no other way to go through life.
Mm,
I know that was true for me. I think it's true for most of us that we're just trying to survive, and we just imagine this is what it means to be an adult.
okay.
So the work of self discovery, of taking time to reflect and say what's so in my life, what's true in my life, what's true about the ways I show up and respond and react to circumstances, what's true
Hmm.
right now about that. And then once we can self discover, once we see what's actually true, once we can slow down from the rat race, if you will, enough to kind of take stock of what's actually true for our
Yeah.
lives, then as we say, once we see it, we can't unsee it. Then we get to decide if we want to hang on to those parts of our lives or those ways that we show up, or if we want to replace them with new, more preferable ways of being.
Yeah, it's a decision that we have to really find
Mhm.
ourselves in a place where we can make it for ourselves. I appreciate that. So, with regards to the imposter syndrome, how would you describe your struggles and the discovery to actually realize, hey, this is what I'm dealing with? How did you manage?
Yeah, I think I define imposter syndrome. I think you're right. You said there's various ways to understand this, and I think most people would define it their own way. But I think the broad way that I would define imposter syndrome is this feeling that we don't belong.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
that's around a table with other people, whether that's in a role in our work, whether that's whatever that is, we just don't belong where we are. And if somebody finds out that we don't belong, then we'll lose that spot or
Hmm.
we'll lose that
Hmm.
status. I think that's imposter syndrome. Um, I would say I felt it like this. I went to seminary, as a 30 something year old adult. I do not have an undergraduate degree. I don't have a 4-year degree. I went to seminary late in life, and I'm facing all of these other students who appear to me as being so much more academic, so much more intellectual, so much
Yeah.
more put together. And
Hmm.
all I could think about was, I just don't belong here.
Yeah.
I remember I took online courses, and I remember I would submit a paper. I'm writing a paper at a level I've never done before,
Right.
and I remember thinking, I'm gonna submit this paper, and this is the one where they're gonna find out that I don't belong, and this is the one where they're gonna ask me to leave. Um, that continued through seminary for me, until I got to one of the first churches I served for. I had the privilege of sitting around a table with some really brilliant people. The church that I served was in a town with a small college in it,
Hmm.
so I got to join a bunch of really brilliant thinkers. And
Hmm.
all I could think of sitting around that table was, I do not belong at this table.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would stay quiet, because I thought if I shared my voice, that they're gonna know. Um, and that's exhausting, Andy. Let me just tell you, like,
It
this
is.
this imposter syndrome it's exhausting, and it robs the world of our voice. Um, I think I can't, I don't want to come across as though I'm exaggerating. I think each one of us is in the place we are on purpose and have the voices we have on purpose. And I think imposter syndrome really does rob not just the organization we're a part of, but also the world of what we are, what we are given to say and do right now. So here's I don't know. I'm maybe going on a little much here, but here's how I took some steps for this,
Hmm.
Andy. I with a wise guide, with my own coach. I still, a good coach has a good coach.
Yeah.
Um, my coach helped me walk through some self discovery to ask the question, what's true? When I'm sitting around that table, what's true? And what's true is that when I was sitting around that table, those brilliant thinkers that I felt so inferior to, they invited me to the table. They know who they're inviting to the table, and they're not looking to get rid of me from the table.
Hmm.
Um, what I learned in self discovery was that fear of being rejected or that fear of being found out actually spans all the way back to my first formation, um,
Okay.
all the way back to some things that I was protecting against, so I didn't feel the hard feelings of either rejection or embarrassment. So I was protecting against those things, but the threat wasn't really real around that table. Those people cared deeply for me. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's where self discovery meets some of these things like imposter syndrome. The self discovery allows us to say, I feel this thing in the moment, and it feels real. It feels real. But what self discovery shows me is that it's actually rooted in the past, it's actually not present today.
Yeah, that's a classical example of what we as coaches do in helping people to discover their reality. It's more
Mhm.
so about so many things in the past that they have struggled with and have failed to overcome, situations that they did not get closure,
Yeah.
wounds of trauma, things that have
Yeah.
been left unresolved, and it's just building up inflammation in the system.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you have come to a place where you are basically, you have seen the light. I would like to put it that way. And you're now in a position where you can help others to do so as well. So as we are on that road, Kurt, how did you guys come up with the name Brimstone?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Thank you for asking that, because this is a
Yeah, sure.
common misconception. We should have thought this through before we settled on brimstone. So the most common thing people think of is like fire and brimstone, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But brimstone is actually a species of butterfly. Um,
Okay.
we believe that our work, that we give our lives to helping people navigate transformation. So butterflies obviously are a natural image that goes well with transformation. Butterfly is a transformed creature,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yep.
brimstone butterfly is the longest living butterfly from metamorphosis to death. The brimstone butterfly lives the longest. So
Okay.
we want to convey to people that we really do want a long life of transformation.
Wonderful. So I appreciate that, and I understand the concept, and it's really interesting. As a matter of fact, thank you for teaching me something there. It's a teaching moment. I just learned something new. That's interesting. I'll look it up further. Brimstone.
Yeah.
I love that. When you get engaged with the people that you serve, your clients and so on,
Yeah.
is there a consistency with the level of challenges that you see them struggle with? Or is it varied? I mean, like from person to person, whether they are in a social bracket or not, or based on their profession, is there consistency or are there varied patterns of the challenges that they are faced with?
Yeah, I think there are definitely varying degrees of how things manifest.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
but I think in general, I think in general there's lots of common human experiences. Um, I
Okay.
I I think imposter syndrome or self doubt, I would maybe put those in the same category. I think those two things are almost universal in the clients that we work with. Um, I think the other thing that feels almost universal is this this desire to be seen in the most positive light possible, which might not be a bad thing, right? Like it's not necessarily a bad thing that I want you and others to view me positively. But the question is, what are we willing to do, and what are we willing to give up in order to, try to take responsibility for what other people feel or think about us. We would call that over functioning. Um,
Ah,
to take responsibility, I can't take responsibility for what you think of me or feel about me. I can only be responsible for how I show up in this moment. So I think
yeah.
those feel like the two most universal things. Again, there are varying degrees, right? If we engage with a leader of people, or a leader of leaders, a leader that has a team that they are directly responsible for, that's going to manifest itself a little different than if we talk to a parent who is raising a kid, as a primary vocation. So they look a little different, but I think boiled down, a human experience is one that brings self doubt, and over functioning.
Wow. I love that. It's unique how you phrase it there, Kurt. Thank you so much. There is so much in what you are saying with regards to the reality of what we see every day from people. But I think basically we are on the same level when it comes to challenges, especially when it has to do with figuring out our emotions and our thoughts, and how we find a way to sort of engage with each other.
Yeah,
It's always going to be some level of challenge.
yeah,
And it leads me to, I want to try and understand E plus R equal T. How did you guys come up with that? Encounter plus reflection equals transformation. I'm intrigued by it.
yeah. Thanks for asking. We
Sure.
we we hold a coaching philosophy, again, that says most of the ways that we react and respond today come from our first formation. And what we would say is that we have so many encounters in our first formation that we have, labeled as good or bad. We have made meaning of. We have made meaning and told stories about ourselves because of those encounters. Maybe the easiest example is, if I, well, let me save the example. We believe those encounters shape us. Um,
Okay.
but we also believe those encounters don't end at first formation. We believe
Hmm.
that we as adults have hundreds, if not thousands, of encounters every day that we can make meaning of. Here's an easy example. If I sent you an email, Andy, and said, "Hey, I'm going to move this weekend. Can you come help me move?" And you say no, I have the chance to make a meaning out of that. I could make the meaning that you don't like me. I can make the meaning that you are angry at me. I can make the meaning that we're not friends. I could also make a meaning that says, well, you're busy, right? We can make a meaning out of those things. And the meaning that we make then often dictates how we respond and how we react.
Yeah.
So we believe that we can make the best, most accurate meaning. We can use our best thinking, is what we would say, in response to those encounters, by reflecting on them, and by asking, literally pausing and saying, what happened, what's true, what am I feeling, and how do I want to react. We believe that when we have an encounter like that today, even if it's not connected to our first formation, if we have an encounter like that today and we do some intentional work to say, what's actually going on, we believe that is, as close to the secret sauce, if you will, as
Hmm.
we can get to
Yeah.
transformation. That those two things paired together on a daily basis will lead to a transformed life.
Yeah. It's amazing that when we do all the studies, it is normally said we carry about 60,000 different thoughts in our minds daily, the average
Yeah,
human being. That's a
yeah,
lot, Kurt. But
yeah,
here's the thing. Here's the problem. Almost 90% of those thoughts are based on things that happened in the past,
yeah,
that are unresolved, that we're reflecting on.
yeah,
And the other, basically 10%, is the present, the now.
yeah,
So we are consciously living in the subconscious
yeah,
and in the past more than we are actually
yeah.
living in the present. How do you help people navigate through that, to realize that we have to find a way to shift the numbers around? because we need to stay more present where the reality of what our current moment exists rather than
Yeah.
the past.
Yeah. I love how you articulate that. I couldn't agree more. I think we would go as far to say that our nervous systems, right, the,
Hmm.
the system in us that says fight, flight, or freeze,
Yes.
learns that these threats are dangerous, and our nervous systems respond to them today as if it was
Hmm.
happening all those years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we would agree with you and say we just learn those things, and we just do them automatically without thinking of them. And over the course of years, they just become more ingrained and harder to break free from. We would say that reflection always is going to lead to a practice, and practice is an action, and maybe the action is writing down on a note card. We'll help people write down on a note card what's true about you today. We call these purposeful promises. We have a curriculum, if you will, that we say in our first formation we make protective promises to ourselves, and that promise is, Kurt, I promise that you will never feel embarrassed again.
Hmm.
So some of the work that we do tangibly is we tell people to write these things down on a note card, and when we feel those dangers or those threats, pull that note card out and remember
Yeah.
what's true today. I think that sort of tactile, I can hold it in my hands, I think that begins to retrain our nervous system and retrain our brains, what is actually true, and starts to replace those things in the past, as you said.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Thank you so much for sharing, Kurt. I want to reflect a bit on some of the experiences that you had with
Yeah.
the seminary scenario, and tell us if you found a new awakening from a spiritual perspective, or was it all just knowledge and education based?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was certainly both. I
Okay.
think I would say I hold a high value on knowledge. I also don't think spiritual faith is simply knowledge.
Yeah.
I think what became true for me is that that I developed a theology of self care, a theology of sort of a wholeness of self, that
Mm-hmm.
that I am a created being. God created me as a whole self, not just a physical or emotional. Those aren't separate. That one impacts the other. That my mental and emotional health actually does impact my well-being as it pertains to vocational effectiveness and vocational responsibility. I think that was true for me. I think my background, my upbringing would say that mental emotional self-care is secondary. That knowledge is probably key. Knowledge is most important, but self-care and mental and emotional well-being, in terms of being able to serve others, that was secondary. So I think if there was an awakening, I think that was it. That I'm a whole created being, created on purpose for a purpose, and invited to live into all parts of me equally.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing, Kurt.
Yeah,
When I think about what the world is basically constructed like now, it is hard to see sometimes where hope is coming from.
yeah,
When you look at the economical output, the political output, the
yeah,
racial stuff that we struggle with. I mean, let's just keep it real.
yeah,
We see a number of struggles and a number of barriers that seem to be unbroken or unclimbable.
yeah,
When you are dealing with clients and you have someone, let's say, for example, a CEO who has to deal with maybe 60, 70 people in the organization that he or she is the head of,
yeah,
what are some of the things that they struggle with regards to understanding the different diverse sections of people, whether it be race, color, political affiliations, or even their ability to function as part of the team? This is something that I've been doing for a while, particularly with team coaching. And I always hear the CEO or the leader say, sometimes it's hard to connect because there's so many different areas of people, so many different backgrounds that I have to deal with. How can we help them, Kurt, to just narrow things down a bit and seek a common ground by which, even though there's diversity, there's still some level of consistency with what people may have in common?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so many things I wanna say. I mean, I think you I think you said so many things that I wanna talk about. I mean, I think the reality of today, like, we are in a weird time, and it's a hard
Mm,
time. I mean,
yeah,
there's so much division and so much
yeah,
brokenness. I mean,
yeah.
I think there's so many things I wanna say. I think in terms of, how would we help someone who wants to kinda be able to be, what I would say their truest self and their best
Hmm.
thinking. I think maybe best thinking is the way I like to think about this, uh, because I do think if we are able to get to our best, most honest thinking, I do like to think that most of us humans do want to understand others that are different from us and do want
Yeah.
to learn from voices that are different. I might be naive in that. I can be a little bit of an optimist to say if we can pause enough, get to our best thinking, that we will do those things well. So I think what we try to do, our coaching philosophy is one that says that I don't have a solution for you, Andy. I don't have a checklist of 5 things to do, for you to do to be a better, more whole leader. What I do have is a posture of curiosity,
Mm,
that can ask you, the right question at the right time, because the solution to these questions, if the question is what keeps us from our best thinking, what keeps us from being able to understand the voice and experience of another, I think the solution for that is actually inside you, or inside the individual.
yeah.
Um, I don't think I can tell a CEO, here's what you need to do so that you can understand the experience of your people better. But what I can do is I can hold up a mirror to them. I can hold up a mirror that helps them get clear for themselves what barrier might be standing in the way. Um, I, I think it really is often, yeah, maybe this is answering some of the other question you said, but I think often what keeps us from hearing the voice of other is some sort of fear rooted in the past, or if a CEO is having a hard time kind of understanding the climate around them, or the experiences people around them. I think there's often a fear under there, and I think we would just really want to hold up a mirror and say, what is that? Is it actually a threat? And how do you want to be, even if it is real? Sometimes threats are real. How do you want to be in the face of it? Yeah, there's so much more I want to say, Andy, but I think maybe that's where I would leave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like to really sometimes just pile it on because, man, we have so many challenges, so many different
Yeah,
areas of this life that we struggle with every single day. And to
yeah,
me personally, and this is my philosophy, people could agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. This is what I firmly believe. Our basic problem is just we don't seem to have the solution as to how we could all just learn to get along one with
yeah,
each other. That's a basic human concept.
yeah.
Let me switch gears
Can
a
I
little bit.
can I jump in
Yeah,
there?
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
I I feel like I wanna put this out there. I agree with you, and
yeah.
and we often say that the only part of a system, right? We all live in a system, whether it's a family or a community or whatever. We all live in a system. The only part of that system that I can control is me.
Yep.
I think it's so easy for me, still, even as a coach who's done this for decades, it's still easy for me to look at my system and say, well, if they would just do this, then the system would be so much better. But we really do invite ourselves and invite our clients in to say, what can you do? What can I do to live into
Hmm.
transformation? Believing that this work is not ultimately for me. It's not ultimately for my client. It's ultimately for the world. right?
Yes.
It's ultimately for the transformation of the systems we live in. That if I show up changed, ultimately that system is going to benefit from my transformation and ultimately begin to take steps towards transformation too.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Kurt. So I just wanted to switch gears a bit and ask you, do you miss Big Papi David Ortiz? Do you miss him?
You like you wouldn't believe, Andy.
Oh man.
I missed Big Poppy. Big Poppy, we talk about Big Poppy, and we're a baseball house. We talk about Big Poppy at least once a week in our house.
Imagine that. Imagine that. The guy was so phenomenal. I followed most of his career and is like awed by some of the stuff that he did on the baseball field. But he's also a phenomenal person in terms of
Yeah,
the stuff that he's doing for his people. And yeah,
yeah,
we need more guys like that, Kurt. We need more guys like that.
yeah. We love Big Poppy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So we coming to the end of this episode. It has been really engaging and full of so much content. What does the future look like for Brimstone Coaching Group? What are you guys looking to do in terms of create a greater level of commitment to helping the people that you serve going forward?
Yeah, so I think we always say that we give our life to this work. That this is vocationally what we have chosen to give our life to. The wholeness of the places that we live, work, and play, whether that's our community, our family, or even our country or our world, we believe that we are that we are committing ourselves to the transformation of those things. Not because we know the answers, not because we have the script, if you will, but because we feel like we've got some tools that have worked in our lives. We continue to kind of expand our reach a little bit. We are in the process of writing a book that covers these promises that I kind of teased out a little bit earlier. But we honestly, Andy, we commit ourselves to our own growth. Um,
Okay.
our our influence and our work can only be as good as our own growth. So I think our
Hmm.
biggest commitment to our clients and our future clients is that we commit to do our own work too.
Yeah. I believe it was, and I commend you for that. Well done. Well done, kid. I believe it was Darwin that said the species that survives is not necessarily the strongest, but the one that is more capable of accepting change.
Mm,
And I think one of the greatest challenges of this time that I've seen more than anything else is to accept the fact that there are some things about us that we can change.
yeah,
It starts with us. The change that we want to see in the world starts with us
yeah,
because we are the ones that contribute to the change in the world. But hey,
yeah.
most folks just don't see it that way. I'm going to put up some stuff on the screen and I want you to tell people, Kurt, how is the most efficient and effective way they can get you and Brimstone services that surely can make a difference in their lives.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Our
Sure.
website is brimstonecoachinggroup.com.
Hmm.
On that website, there are ways to book some time with us. We offer everyone a free 20-minute inquiry call to see if our philosophy is a good fit for potential
Right.
clients.
Right.
We also have a podcast. You can find it on Spotify or Apple. It's called the Brimstone Coaching Podcast.
Hmm.
We really do think that the podcast is a way for people to get to know myself and Chris, my business partner, just a little bit more. They can find that too. Those are the best, most efficient ways to find us.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So there you have it, folks. Kurt Bush has been in the house with us, the co-founder of the Brimstone Coaching Group. Get to the website www.brimstonecoaching.com and get that free 20-minute consultation to see whether you and them can agree to be on the same page so that we can always help each other. And I always tell people that I work with, don't think that because you come to me as a coach that I have all the answers.
Yeah, yeah,
I can help you to get to the water, but
yeah,
you have to decide how you're going to drink.
yeah,
You have to decide how you're going to reframe your story because you realize the one that you had before is not working in your best interest.
yeah,
So I also learn from my clients, and I'm sure you share that sentiment as well,
yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
Any passing or closing statements you'd like to leave with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me. I think again, I just want to echo transformation is possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We as adults are not destined to just survive life.
Yeah.
Transformation is possible.
Right. Wonderful. Appreciate that. It's a great note to end on. So, until next time, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development on Transactional Conversations. As you have heard it, it's the place for intentionality, clarity, and purpose. And our guest, Kurt Bush, has certainly led us in that direction in so many wonderful ways. So, until next time, I'm saying on behalf of him and myself that you need to stay good, you need to stay wonderful and blessed, and always remember that with God, all things are possible. Until next time, bye for now.